Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location at Cards Against Humanity in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rod, the movie guy, and sitting behind the glass, the man turning the knobs over there inside the fish tank is Filmy and Phil.
How's it going, guys?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we turn the lights off.
Yeah.
As we cover our top 5 movie scenes in the dark.
One of the hardest to research topics we have ever done.
I agree.
Because you type in the word dark and immediately they dark and twisted and...
Or dark as in actually like people feeling that the scenes weren't very well lit.
Right,
like
which is a thing.
The latest Game of Thrones when everybody had that complaint about, it was too dark of a scene.
Uh-huh.
Those are all over the internet, but actually looking about characters that are in the dark was tough to research. I'm going to agree with you there.
It was very tough.
But
we did it.
We did it. And we have our top 5. And I have a really good top 5 I'm excited to talk about.
Okay, good, because mine's crap.
Helping us with that list, Matt, believe it or not, 3 guests in the studio.
If it's not a first, it's been an extremely long time since we've had 3 guests. I think it's happened once or twice before. But yes, indeed, we do. We have Megan Marie Connolly, Claudia Krogmeyer, and Nate Gilbert, who all collaborated on a short film called Dear Frankie. Can't wait to talk to them.
I know. I had had the pleasure of meeting Megan Marie and Nate at the Straight 8 Film Festival. That was the 8mm film fest that Elias was in. So they're also sort of behind that. So we'll also touch a little bit on the Straight 8 Film Festival.
Yeah, I know Megan Marie's got some other cool projects too, so can't wait to talk to them.
Wow. Besides that, even more going on, isn't there, Phil?
Yeah, in honor of our top 5, or I guess our top 5 is in honor of our Eye for an Eye this week, which is scary stories to tell in the dark.
And we got 2 reviews this week.
2?
Crawl and The Big Hack.
Nice.
Yeah, Netflix
I like it.
Documentary.
Also, there is a movie coming out called The Kitchen. All
really?
Right? Yeah, it stars Elizabeth Moss, Tiffany Haddish, and Melissa McCarthy. So we're playing Kitchen Cast movie trivia.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Yourself, verse 3. Are you okay to take on 3 opponents?
Well, I was thinking about that. I actually brought a ringer in with me, but he's too good at trivia. Parker, my son. So I don't think it would be fair to the team from Dear Frankie, so actually I'll just take Phil. I want to give him a sporting,
really boost up Phil's
sporting
spirit.
chance, yeah.
Okay,
so Phil, will you be on my team?
For whatever little that's worth, absolutely.
All right, great. And Parker can read the clues.
Wow, so it is going to be 3 against 2. Parker is giving the clues. Pitch me in Parker, pitch in Parker, something like that.
Just pitch, man.
Wow, this is exciting.
He could swing in and save the day.
There you go.
We also have a new theme this month.
It's a busy month.
It is.
It's a busy podcast.
We just wrapped up Quentin Tarantino month. If we have time, and I think we will, Matt, a quick spoiler lounge at the end of the episode.
Okay.
So it brings us to August. Wow, this year is flying by. That means we have a new theme. Matt, you were behind picking this gentleman.
Oh, I love this guy, especially his voice. One of the greatest American narrators of all time. Tremendous actor in many of my favorite movies, including one that I have put at the number 1 spot many, many times. The great Morgan Freeman.
Wow, there it is. Cinemajaw will be celebrating Morgan Freeman all month of August.
Yeah.
Let's kick it off, Phil, with a Morgan Freeman fact.
Yes, this week's Cinemajaw Morgan Freeman fact. Morgan started his acting career at the tender age of 12, winning a statewide competition in drama. Later, he would go on to become the first African-American to appear in 3 separate Best Picture films.
That is impressive. And you got to also consider the fact that when Morgan Freeman was 12, it was 1949, okay? So that's an achievement in and of itself. This is before the civil rights movements, everything like that. So he had to have been tremendous to break down those barriers.
I'm glad we're celebrating Morgan Freeman here on Cinemajaw.
I'm very happy about it as well.
Also, August, new month, means new riddle. Matt, Before we do that, let's remind the Jawheads what the July riddle was.
The controversial July riddle, which was very difficult, I am told, is this. I was adored by thousands of right-wing Pennsylvanians before I got shot, including Jack Black. Starring alongside Robin Williams when he had a mustache made it difficult to keep a straight face on set, I imagine. I was a good person who didn't make a lot of sense when Sean Penn pinned a crime on me. I've been a Viking, a prisoner, a ball player, and a buddy to Martin. Who am I? I thought it was easy.
Right. Well, because you wrote the riddle, but it proved pretty difficult. Explain the riddle here, Matt.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of Morgan Freeman, thousands of right-wing Pennsylvanians before I got shot, including Jack Black, is from the movie Bob Roberts, and starring alongside Robin Williams when he had a mustache was in Cadillac Man. Good person who didn't make a lot of sense when Sean Penn pinned a crime was from Mystic River. He was a Viking in Eric the Viking. He was a prisoner in the Shawshank Redemption. He was a ball player in Bull Durham and buddy to Martin in Nothing to Lose. Ryan, it's obvious that the answer is Tim Robbins.
Wow, Tim Robbins was the answer. A few Jawheads did get it correct, so Matt, let me reach into the hat, pull out a winner, and we have Joe Marshall. Joe Marshall,
Flicker
always
Joe,
writing, always writing in. Joe, you get your choice of a prize. We're giving away a $25 gift card to Fandango, or you can always take Matt on in trivia in a future Cinemajaw. Write us feedback at cinemajaw.com. Whew, Matt, that brings us to the August riddle. I wrote this one. I think it's
Just
actually
gotta throw
a little
that
bit
in.
easier.
You got to throw that in, Ryan. Take the credit. All right. This is the August riddle. I am afraid, very afraid, not of roller coasters. I used to work at an amusement park. And not of skeletons either. I made a movie in their name. Falling food from the sky? Now that is scary. Now let me bust this high school party and take all their Gold Slick vodka. Who am I?
If you know the answer to the August riddle, write us feedback at cinemajaw.com. Your name will be thrown in a hat, and we will pick out one lucky winner.
Are we going to throw in another Fandango card?
Possibly.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So you can win
Sounds like a plan.
$25.
I like it.
Fandango card. There you go.
Exciting.
Indeed.
All right. That takes care of all of our housekeeping. At
That
the
was
top
quick.
Of the show.
Yeah.
Finally, bring in our guests. They've been patient sitting here. Matt had mentioned they have a film called Dear Frankie. It is a pleasure to honor Megan Marie, Nate, and Claudia to Cinemajaw. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
If you could go around the room so that they get an idea of who's talking.
Yeah, put a name
And,
to the voice.
Yeah, say your name and what you did on Dear Frankie.
I'm Claudia. I'm a co-director and co-writer.
I'm Megan Marie. I am the other director and writer, and I also helped produce.
And I'm Nate, and I produced and executive produced the film.
Nice. Now, this is actually currently making the festival rounds. Is that right? And I hear you guys have been kind of doing pretty well with it.
Yeah, we actually just got back from Indie Shorts in Indianapolis this past weekend. It's presented by Heartland Film, and they have an amazing Heartland Film International Film Festival in October, and then it was just doing so well that film festival is dedicated to features, so they broke off and started doing a short film festival.
Oh, nice.
It's the largest one now in the Midwest, and it was an absolute pleasure. So much fun to be there.
So tell us a little bit about the film and how it came together.
Yeah, so this film originally was made for a competition that Nate will probably talk about. It's called Straight 8, and the whole idea is that basically it's shot on film and you have to shoot it continuously. So we were kind of thinking about that idea, what we wanted to do with it. I've wanted to work with Claudia for a while. Little known fact, we are actually related. So
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler
Now,
alert.
when you say shot continuously, you mean you have to shoot the film in sequence. Is that right?
Yeah, so part of the competition, which makes it a lot of fun, is all your edits need to be done in camera. So you do not have an opportunity to kind of go back and develop your film and then be able to cut it when, in post.
What if somebody forgets a line? You're screwed?
You're screwed. Yeah.
That just makes it into the film.
It makes it into the
Or
film.
you can get another film reel, but that would be kind of a pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
but we've done that.
But that's what makes it fun, too. The straight 8, anyways, the idea is that the filmmaker actually doesn't even see his film, right?
Right.
Until it's actually shown
Screened.
in the competition. And that's part of the joy of it all, is like, did we get this completely right? You know, they may be using an effect where there's supposed to be, you know, a dangling star in camera, and it might actually be outside of the shot. You just don't know until you actually see it.
Yeah, and in some cases, you might not know for months if you got it right, or if you're just so wildly off on your execution of that shot that it will just kind of haunt you for months, and just the agony of waiting and just waiting and waiting until you get the call, whether or not your film made it to one of the screenings or whether it was not selected. So it can just be one of those things where it's a ton of fun to make, because I think it's such a unique way of filmmaking, and it kind of gets you back to the original raw form of shooting on film, kind of the basics of filmmaking, where
And storytelling, really, right?
Yeah, and you didn't have those kind of the modern tools that everybody has, where you have computers and you can go back and shoot things 30 times if you wanted to.
And the kind of idea is that you send that in, and you don't get to see it, but then you do have to compose a soundtrack, but you have to do that without being able to see your film. So there's a lot of math happening on set to make sure, you know, that you're lining up your audio correctly, and then you send that off, and the competition marries it.
Right, because in
together.
8mm, you're actually recording the audio separately, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to like compose your music and any additional dialogue and stuff.
And sound effects.
Sound effects. Getting dialogue to line up with that kind of stuff is very challenging.
Oh, I imagine so. So, and you know, usually with challenge film festivals like the 24-Hour Fest or Straight 8, you'll see a film and you'll say, this is good for what it is. But this film that you've made actually turned out so well that it's breaking out.
Yeah, we've been really, really fortunate about it. When it got selected to be part of the competition, is that the top 8 finalists get to premiere at a section of Ken. So we went there last year. So that was really awesome. They have an affiliation with them, and it was just we had a wonderful reception of it, and so many people came up to us and was like, you need to put this in the circuit. It's great. It's kind of like what you said, not just great for what the limitations are, but an overall good film, which is, you know, always what you want to hear.
Of course, yeah.
And Claudia, if you could touch on the premise of Dear Frankie.
Sure. So I mostly focused on the more of what I saw visually, but it's based on experience that Megan Marie had and a visual idea that I'd had in my mind for a while. And I was interested in doing something with long takes too, and I think that worked really well for our film because it's really short. So in the film, we kind of see a friendship that's kind of corroding, and we kind of get to go through the daily activities of these two roommates, and we get to see just how they're not really connecting anymore. So basically, in each of our 4 shots, they kind of go through the motions, and then towards the end, the one person will kind of freeze in position. And it's been really interesting hearing what people think that means. But when I originally thought of that, I wasn't quite sure what it meant. But it could be symbolic, and it could mean many different things for many different people.
We're a fan of that sort of tradition in storytelling where you sort of leave that open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of felt right. And I just think it's really cool that it has so many different interpretations from so many different people.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I think
congrats.
the one that I take most away from it is that like it's like a play on memory, basically, because the whole film is about this woman writing a letter, and it's kind of her like reliving her past, and so like what her memory is, kind of the cognitive dissonance between her memory of what she remembers, what she wants to remember, what's actually the truth, and what's not the truth. So Claudia has this amazing, like, experimental, really cool visual style that I was so excited to incorporate.
Thanks. I feel like with Megan Marie's story, it did all just kind of come together because I kind of originally wasn't sure quite what to do with this visual thing that I was thinking of. And then it really did just come together really nice. And then when we got the film back, I was surprised at how pretty it looked because I don't think I'd worked with Super 8 film before, so that was really cool.
It's awesome. So once it gets done with the festival circuit, like what's the idea? Put it up online somewhere? Take us there for the jawheads listening to this that want to check this Dear Frankie out.
Yeah, we've had some initial discussions about what the plan might be down the road. We have about another 8 to 9 months of festivals submitted for, and we've kind of looked at 2 or 3 different options in terms of where online it might live. So it could be a YouTube, Vimeo kind of life.
The standard.
The standard kind of thing. It could be through on YouTube, but through a different distribution network. You've started to see very much some short films that have gone through a company and kind of release the rights to it, but that allows them to get more views. So we've kind of started to work on how that might work. And we're open to any and all conversations. I don't want any real restrictions, and I don't think Megan or Claudia do either, because the idea is we want as many people to see it. And I feel like if we just say, like, you know what, we're just going to throw it up on our personal page and that will be the end of it,
right?
Not as many people are going to see it. But if we open up to, say, an Amuletto or to a company like that that might be interested in saying, hey, this has done really well in the festival circuit, you might, would you be interested in potentially hosting our film? And we'll kind of see where those conversations go in the next 8 to 9 months.
And we've had a lot of screenings in and around the city as well, and around the country. So we're pretty vocal about where we'll be, and of course, anyone who wants to come.
Well, I was going to ask, in the meantime, since you're so vocal about it, where's the best place for people to go to listen to you and follow the film?
Yeah, so our social media stuff is at Dear Frankie Film. So that's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And then our personals, which we're always talking about Dear Frankie on there, and where we're going with it, where it's screening. We also have our teasers up, and we post a bunch of clips and stuff. Mine is at M.Connolly, Connolly, and that's Instagram.
I'm Nate.Gilbert on Instagram and Nate Gilbert on Twitter.
Well, if anyone wants to find me, I'm Claude.Krog on Instagram, so that's CLAUD.KROG.
Nice. Do it, everybody.
Yeah. Where are we at with another Straight 8 film festival here in Chicago?
So that was really Elias and I trying to kind of take this film festival that is originated in, the UK and London, that didn't really have a big reach here in the U.S., and it's such an exciting kind of challenge, and it's a really good way to get your film shown in a bunch of different places. So basically, Elias and I kind of took that model and developed this partnership with the guys over in Straight 8, and we're like, hey, we want to put something on in Chicago. Can we start to host this? And they were really great about letting us do that. We got IFP involved. It was really nice. We're probably not going to put on another screening like that. However, all the films that we did screen are living online, and Straight 8 has its own Vimeo where you can see all their films, including one that Nate and I made the year previously called Bedhead. That is also up for viewing too.
Nice.
So, yeah, lots of opportunities.
They're a lot of fun.
I highly recommend going to check it out.
I was at that film festival and had a blast with it, so definitely do it, Jawheads. We like to end our guest interviews with a silly cinema cue, usually about the theme of the month. Phil?
Yes, so it is about Morgan Freeman, and since it's the beginning of the month, our first week of Morgan Freeman month, I wanted to ask this. Obviously, Morgan Freeman's best-known trait is his narration voice. Out of everything that he's narrated, what would you guys say? And Team Dear Frankie, you guys can either agree or disagree. What is his best narration performance?
That's a tough one, man.
I don't know how tough that is.
I feel like to really appreciate Morgan Freeman's talent as a narrator, I would have to say, what is it, March of the Penguins?
That
March of
is-
the Penguins
yes.
is a great one.
I would have to say that one. For sure.
Is that what you were thinking, Ryan?
Yeah,
You said
I
it's
thought
not a tough one.
Yeah, no, I thought the two that are standouts, March of the Penguins and
Shawshank.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go left field here and say his Visa commercials. I mean, those things are works of art, personally. That's what I got to say.
I agree.
A specific narration doesn't come to mind, but I do think of God when I think of Morgan Freeman because he's always the voice of God or the omniscient person.
Well, yeah, he was God and Bruce Almighty.
Yep.
At least that one role, probably more.
Does he do narration in $1 Million Baby? Some, right?
Throw it in the fish
Throw it
tank.
in the fish tank. I think he does, but I'm not positive.
Yeah.
Good question, though, Phil.
Great question.
Wow, we're off and rolling on Morgan Freeman month.
I'm excited about it.
Well, Megan Marie, Nate, and Claudia are sitting in on this entire job. They have their top 5 films that take place in the dark. We'll see where this goes. I start thinking of them, Jawheads.
Scenes.
Yes, not. I did say film. Just scenes. Think of the good ones, Jawheads. It takes a little while,
Oof, boy, does it.
but I got 5 good ones.
I'm excited to hear your list.
All right, brings us to Eye for an Eye.
Yes, Eye for an Eye, scary stories to tell in the dark. It's 1968, the small town of Mill Valley, where for generations the shadow of the Bellows family has loomed large. It is in their mansion on the edge of town that a young girl with horrible secrets turned her tortured life into a series of scary stories, written in a book that has transcended time. Stories that have a way of becoming all too real for a group of teenagers who discover Sarah's terrifying tome. The film is produced by Guillermo del Toro and is directed by Andre Overdahl, who is best known for directing 2010's Troll Hunter. Rye, we throw it over to you.
Well, it's funny that he directed Troll Hunter, still on my list to watch.
Oh,
I have
seen it.
Troll Hunter, and I have that one written down in my journal. I remember this was on my list for summer movie preview, so obviously interested. And I said it then, I'll say it now. I really do wish this was directed by Guillermo del Toro and not just produced.
Right.
I saw a preview for it just earlier today, and it got me excited. I know the press screening is next week. I'm interested. Matt?
Well, we're going to be talking about a film that's produced by a big-name director later on, and what that means. Well, I think to have Del Toro's name on it is a stamp of approval of some sorts. Does that mean the film's going to be good? I don't know, but at least it bodes well. I'm a huge fan of the book. I mean, who isn't? You know,
I'm not. I've never read it.
Dude, you are missing out. In fact, because of the movie, it's back in circulation. I saw it at Target the other day. Pick it up. It's still terrifying. So yeah, I'm totally interested, man. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat.
Claudia, interested or ignore?
Ignore.
Wow.
Didn't
What
read the
gives?
book?
I don't know. I think the movie it doesn't look that original. It's hard to get original horror stories, I feel like.
Wow.
I don't know. Hereditary is my all-time favorite. I feel like that's genuinely very unique. But this one, I mean, it's probably fun, but it's probably not amazing.
Megan Marie?
I'm definitely interested. Yeah. Oh, I'm interested.
He rings the bell all the time. It's distracting, I know.
Kind of what you said, like having the stamp of Guillermo del Toro is great.
Uh-huh.
However, that being said, sometimes I also think that might mean it can be sloppy. So interested to see how that's going to go.
Interested but trepidatious.
Nate?
I am interested. I think that over the last couple years, we've had such a renaissance in horror, in the horror genre, and the quality of horror movies has just gotten so much better that I was always never into the horror movies. But over the last couple years, I've just been like, okay, I'll go see a horror movie or I'll go see scary movies. So I'm in. It's got Del Toro's name on it, and I'm in.
Phil, we're sitting at 4 interesteds, 1 ignore as we go into the fish tank. Where do you sit?
Claudia, you're on your own, dude. This is going to be so exciting. I read the books as a kid, too. Matt's right. Yeah, if you haven't read them, Ryan, you're a dweeb. Pick them up. They're great.
Especially the first one. And those illustrations, man.
On the cover, oh my God.
Are we
I'm
getting
still
3
terrified.
stories in this one?
That
Is
I
it
don't
like
know.
it's probably, right? Like an anthology, is that what you mean? Yeah.
But is the book got more of them?
yeah.
Okay.
And more than 3. There might be like 10.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I hope they show the one where she takes off her
Yes.
Her, what is it, the
choker.
ribbon on her,
Yeah.
the choker on her neck, and then her head falls off. I remember reading that as a kid. It was nuts.
Me too. That's one of the ones that scarred me, man. Anytime somebody's wearing a choker, I'm always a little creeped out.
All right, we got 4 interested, 1 ignore, 4 scary stories to tell in the dark. We'll have a review next episode.
But I mean, be honest, Claudia, you're going to be there.
I will probably see it. I mean, I did like the books a lot, but I wasn't that interested in the trailer. But I mean, I would like to see it. So.
All right.
I'm just giving you crap. It's totally okay.
We forgive you.
Well, we go into
Thanks.
more horror here as we have a review of Crawl, Matt.
Nice.
A girl, her father, and an alligator walk into a bar. The bartender says, I have an idea for a movie. It's been a while, Matt, since we've got a good alligator film.
Boy, has it, Ryan.
So,
that's a true statement.
Matt, Nate, and I sharpened our teeth and chomped down on Crawl.
The state of Florida has issued a Category 5 hurricane warning. All residents must evacuate immediately. Grab your families, your loved ones, and get out.
Dad!
We won't be able to come for you.
Dad!
Rule number 1 of an alligator movie: don't overstay your welcome. I'm happy to report Crawl's runtime is a nice 89 minutes long. With that said, the plot and relationship of the characters has to be told quickly and on point so we have enough time to see some people ripped into pieces. We meet Kea during a swim meet in college. After losing her race, she reflects on a time when her father, played by Barry Pepper, taught her how to swim and so forth. In the locker room, she gets a call from her concerned sister. You see, a hurricane is hitting a Florida town where their father still lives and he's not answering his phone. Kea decides to drive down there and see if he needs help. Upon arriving to the house, she finds her dad in the basement, and that is not all. The floodwaters have brought with it a ridiculously large alligator. Can the two get to safety? And an even better question is, will we get introduced to some silly side characters that will clearly be eaten by gators? The answer is yes. Bloody yes. We get gators ripping bodies apart, gators leaping out of the water, gators being stabbed in the head. Thankfully, Kea Matt is a swimmer, or I'm not sure.
That came in handy.
Yeah, I'm not sure the father and daughter would have a chance here. Crawl is best if you do not think about it too much. Allow yourself to have fun. For a horror film about alligators attacking people in their house, Crawl's a winner. I had fun, Matt.
I agree with you, Ryan. First of all, I want to say that you said ridiculously large gators. I don't think they were ridiculously large. I mean,
Too large, I thought.
Really? No. Alligators are pretty big
And we'll talk
creatures.
about the look of the alligators. That was a little iffy for me as well.
Oh, interesting. I didn't have that sort of issue whatsoever. I thought the alligators looked great. The reason this movie succeeds, and I do think it succeeds for the most part, is the fact that the characters are so strong. The relationship between daughter and father is strained. You can tell that there's a history. The world feels sort of lived in. They did a great job with all of that. And then when all hell starts to break loose with the hurricane and the gators and stuff, it just sort of is the catalyst that propels their healing, the way that they fix their relationship, even if they wind up missing a few limbs at the end.
And I like that actually there's, of course, got to be the big moment where the father and daughter have that touching relationship bond again.
Yeah.
But keep it to about 30 seconds
And
to a
they
minute
did.
and get right back to the alligators, and they did just that.
They did a great job with that. I agree, man. It was fun. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Did you have a favorite scene?
Wait,
here?
hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nate also has seen
true.
it. And I believe, Nate, you were a fan of Crawl as well.
I had a blast. I went in, I was saying earlier to you, I went into this movie with bottom basement expectations.
No pun intended.
There you go. And I went out into the crawl space. There you go. No, I went in just not really thinking much. I thought this was going to be another very low budget, generic monster movie. And it had a lot of heart. And again, exactly, it had the right runtime. It had the right amount of just people getting ripped to shreds. I actually liked the creature the creature design.
The look of the alligators.
Right. Like, I thought it worked for what it was.
I thought the first time we saw the alligator in the basement, I thought, oh, why'd you have to make it so big? To me, it seemed
dude, how big do you think an
preposterous.
alligator is? They're bigger than this table.
Did you see Chance the Snapper? He was a little guy.
But I also thought, like, it had to be kind of comically big for, like, what it was trying to be, which is, like, this fun, kind of ridiculous monster movie.
Yes.
And it all kind of just worked. And I think the reason that, like, it's kind of done so well is, again, like, okay, this is, and I think you mentioned this earlier, you know, it's a Sam Raimi movie. So it has that bigger name.
There's the producer, right,
attached to it. And, you know, as the trailers were coming out for it, and then you started seeing, oh, wow, this is getting really good reviews, and it's starting to make a lot of money. And, like, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go see this. And I went and saw it. I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. Like, and I told my friends, I was like, you should go see this. Like, it was a great time.
I would say it had more jump scares than it had those, like, really high tension moments where even when at one point Kaya's got to swim to, like, get her phone sort of like under the water or, you know, in the basement. And she's
Right
got to
before it got crushed.
Before it got crushed by one of the alligators. What do you call that? A paw or whatever that thing? What are the alligator's feet called? Throw that in the fish tank. Is it just feet or do they actually have a scientific name?
I think it's just feet.
Yeah. So before the alligator crushed the thing, that part, I guess, was a little tense because she was trying to, like, get around some pipes.
I don't know what you're talking about. All of it was tense,
It
man.
was?
Yes, absolutely.
I thought it was more jump scares with the, you know, when the gators would leap out of the water that I felt.
Oh, man. Okay, so there's, first of all, just going into your crawl space is scary. If it's bone dry and clean, you have the most wonderful tiled crawl space because you have claustrophobia. But there's no crawl space on the world that's tiled and clean. They're all filthy and there's bugs everywhere.
Spider webs.
Yeah, so just being down there and there's some rodents running by, it's disgusting. Okay, so that alone would freak me out. I wouldn't go down there even if I knew there weren't alligators. She's also caught in a flood, so the rising water adds another level of fear. And then within the waters are monsters. So, I mean, yeah, I was tense the whole movie. I'm like clenched up on the edge of my seat. I was really afraid, and the jump scares were almost a relief.
Wow.
I liked the tension.
I also appreciated too that it wasn't like a shark. Like, it was a different monster.
But it could have been, let's be honest.
It could have been, but, like, it was something different. Like you said, like, it's been a while since we had, like, an alligator.
I was trying to think
something.
What was the one with Betty White? She was in an alligator movie, and it was a
fish tank.
giant alligator movie.
Was that Lake Placid?
I think you're correct.
Okay.
Oh,
take a stab at that one.
The way that you guys are describing this just sounds like alligators with a less cheesy version of Sharknado.
That's fair.
So-
That's probably fair.
It's done a little bit better
Little
than
bit better?
A lot bit better.
Yeah,
A
a lot bit better is a good way to say it because it's not quite a B movie feel of Sharknado.
Got it.
Right.
But
And
do we think it's gonna be-
the effects are better.
The effects are way better.
Do we think it's going to be like a cult classic type of thing of the summer?
I don't think it's
or-
that strong. It's just
Okay.
a really
But
good,
it's
fun movie.
It is fun.
I don't think they're going to make another one, probably.
Oh, well, we'll see if this one makes enough.
This is Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it's made 3 times its budget. So it could at this point.
Breaking it down a little bit further
Sure.
here, Matt, a best moment or something you really wanted to highlight?
Let's just say the robbery gone wrong. I mean, that's kind of when we first get to see, like, true carnage. And that's almost when it took on a bit of a Jaws feel. So I liked that you saw that the world was bigger than just the crawl space.
Yes. For me, as I mentioned, I really liked the jump scares in the movie. And I'm one of those guys that if you catch me at a good moment, I can literally almost fall out of the theater chair. And they got me. And it was when a tree goes through the window.
That got me too.
Yeah, I think because this is not a spoiler because no one's going to know when this happens. It literally comes out of nowhere, and it's loud, and I literally almost jumped out of my chair. I just was not ready for the moment.
No.
The hurricane's going on, so branches are flying, you know?
It was a good one.
Yeah. A worse scene or trouble?
I got one.
Okay.
So Kayla, is it Kaya or Kayla?
It's spelled, I looked it up, as Kaya.
I would say that's Kaya then.
That's why
I
how
thought he
was
was saying
pronouncing
Kayla
it.
the whole movie.
Or was he saying K?
Well,
I think he shortened it a lot of times to K.
the lead actor goes out onto her patio at one point during the movie. This is during a Florida Category 5 hurricane, okay? Wind is whipping all the plants in her yard around. Rain is coming sideways, and her hair is not moving one bit. That bothered me.
Well,
Took me
why
out of
would
it. Exactly.
I would say it's way too easy to see the swimming part with the father encouraging her in the flashbacks to see exactly that this is how the movie is going to end. And do they really have helicopters flying in a hurricane like that to pick people up?
No, they usually wait till the storm's over.
Right, till the storm's over.
Yeah.
The storm is just
raging.
It's at its absolute worst. Branches are flying around, and there's helicopters coming to pick people off. That doesn't happen, does it? Seems ridiculous.
I don't think it does.
That helicopter's going down. Let's
For
be
sure.
real.
Yeah.
Influences.
There's part 2, Nate. That's how it starts.
I've been corrected. There you go.
I mean, I think Sharknado's a fair influence. I also got flavors of Jaws, though not quite as a masterpiece, but it's there.
Yeah, I went with The Storm. There was that sort of cheesy Into the Storm movie a couple years ago that has, some tense moments from the storms themselves. Because I think the flooding added a lot to this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was good. What'd you learn, if anything?
No, not much other than apparently all you need to protect yourself from gators is some, pipes in the basement. You'll be fine.
And a shovel.
Shovels are good.
I went with, and I don't know if this is true, maybe the movie's lying to me and I'm actually going to get eaten by an alligator since we have them here in Chicago now. I learned.
Just stay out of Humboldt Park, you'll be fine.
I learned that if you don't move, alligators will just swim right by you.
Just like Tyrannosaurus Rex.
That can't be real, is it?
I don't think so.
Don't move.
I'm not going to find
Don't move.
out.
And then, it just swims right by you. I don't know. You got a movie poster quote here, Matt?
No, I don't. You got one?
It's never safe to go back into your flooded basement.
It's a good one.
That is a good one.
I like that one.
I could see it right there. How many Jaws you got, Matt K?
For this one, I'm giving this... It's difficult to give it 3 Jaws, but that's where I'm at with it. It was a lot of fun. It's a good movie, and there was just enough heart to make it a 3-Jaw movie.
We're on a 4-Jaw scale here, Nate. How many Jaws?
I'd give it a 3-Jaw.
3-Jaw?
Yep.
I'm at 2.5. I enjoyed it. I'm recommending.
Yeah. It's better than what it should be by far.
There's your movie poster.
There it is,
it's
Ryan.
Better than what it should be.
I like it.
Coming to a theater near you.
I love it. If you have seen Crawl, since it has been out a couple weeks, you can write us feedback at cinemajaw.com or hit us up on Twitter at cinemajaw. Let us know what you thought of the movie. No really big in the dark moments, even though a little bit when they're in the basement.
It's dim.
It's dim. But that is our topic this week, and it's a difficult list for you guys to come up with as well. Did you guys collaborate and talk on email or something? Or?
Oh, yeah. We've been texting, calling. We're figuring it out. The research had. We're ready for it. So.
Well, you guys here, Megan Marie, Claudia, and Nate have combined their list. So what do you have at number 5?
So at number 5, keeping with the monster theme here, speaking of Jaws, we have Jaws at number 5, the opening scene of Jaws, where Susan Buckline, fantastic actress, gets pulled down underneath, and that kind of sets the tone for the movie, which is where you see a lot of the film from both the perspective of the shark and how you don't see the shark. It's also just the way that is shot, the way that they did that, how they were basically wired her up and were just yanking this poor early 20s actress and just slashing this poor woman underwater. But the way that they lit that, and they had just a giant light just kind of shining onto the water, and it just was this terrifying moment. Which set the tone for the movie.
Not many people then at night want to go swimming in the ocean.
No, dark water is really scary.
I remember being, spring break or whatnot, you're on a vacation, and the ocean's scary. I know probably because of
Lake
Jaws.
Michigan is scary at night. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. There's probably nothing in there. You get a big cod or something. That's about it.
Nice pick. Gets us started off with a classic.
All right. That swings it to me. At number 5, I have one of the most interesting premises for a vampire movie. I'm going to go ahead and say of all time.
Oh, my goodness.
Because what would you do if you lived in a town in Alaska where when night comes, it lasts 30 days.
You love your Josh Hartnett.
I do love my Josh Hartnett. I'm a big fan of the graphic novel 30 Days of Night. Steve Niles wrote the original graphic novel. And when night falls, that's the scene. You know, I guess as the audience, because we're going to see a vampire movie, what's going to come for these characters. So it's sort of ominous that they're going to be locked in this month-long night where the vampires can just have their way in this town. It's really cool. Good scene.
I enjoyed that one. I didn't read the graphic novel, but I remember thinking...
The book's better, but the movie's fun. It's just the premise. I mean, that really, so smart.
So I went with a shark movie at my number 5 also, and it's a terrible shark movie, but the scene is what we're highlighting here. 2 years ago, 2017, Mandy Moore made a shark movie entitled 47 Meters Down. We're actually getting a sequel in a couple of weeks.
48 meters down? I mean, seriously, really?
No, but there is a sequel coming out.
That movie was so bad. It was so good.
But there is one scene, since we're highlighting in the dark moments, where Mandy Moore's character and the other actress, they're basically are way down. They've come out of the cage. The idea here, the premise was that they were going to go in one of those shark cages.
Like a tourist, adventure tourism thing, yes.
The cage breaks. They're down in basically the bottom of the ocean. They come up, and you learn a lot about scuba diving here. They were too far down, and the oxygen, I forget exactly what, so they got to wait a little while
so they don't get the
pass
bends.
out. Right.
Yeah.
So they're sort of waiting there, and of course, all they have with them is a flashlight and a flare. And
they forgot their bat shark repellent.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been handy, though.
And they lose the flares, at certain times. They're starting to shake, and then the flashlight goes out. And all you get is this complete darkness, black, of sitting in the ocean. And I think the entire audience knows exactly what's going to happen here as they're fiddling around for another flare. And when they finally open up that flare, boom, giant shark on the screen with them. And the scare is just awesome. As bad as the movie was, you got to give them credit for just the timing and the way it was shot. I was a fan. Watched it again last night. Still got me. And I knew it was coming. And of course, they swim up, and
I'm a fan of that trope.
Let's be honest, nobody can kill Mandy Moore. You can't kill her. No. So we know she's going to live. That was my number 5. I can't believe I have 47 meters down on a list.
I can't
but
either.
I just did it, Matt. I just did it. Into our 4s we go.
So our number 4 is Lights Out.
My number 4 as well.
What?
Good pick.
You great minds here.
So I actually really like this movie. It's directed by David F. Sandberg. He originally made a short film in 2013 by the same name, Lights Out, on like zero budget, and it's like 3 minutes long, and then it had like over 1 million views and all this kind of stuff. And then he made it into a feature. But the scene that I'm particularly thinking about is one that really relates a lot to that short film, which is probably the first scene. Where Billy Burke is in, most notably probably known for Kristen Stewart's father in Twilight, but he's closing up his warehouse, which is a mannequin warehouse.
Scary already, right?
Scary already. And his lights are go on and off depending on motion sensor. But the whole idea of the entire film is that there's this ghost person, her name is Diana, that she only appears in the dark. So the entire first scene is the motion sensors are on, and then you see her in between the lights, and then they go off
in
and
a
she
distance,
moves
and then she moves forward, right?
She keeps getting closer, and
Like that Ninja Cat video where they cut away and the cat's closer, and they cut away and the cat's closer.
It's terrifying. It's so simple, but it's terrifying. And yeah, it's our number 4.
The trailer, even I remember seeing the trailer, which is basically the same premise.
Yeah.
It's a lady. She's got. She looks back in the room.
Now it's
and
clicked.
she turns off the light, and she thinks she sees somebody there. She turns it on, turns it off, and it keeps getting closer. And it's oh my god.
That's the short film. It
Right.
was
I've seen the short. Yeah.
And then it's on her nightstand at the end of it, and it's the most terrifying 3 minutes of my entire life. But this feature was made for $5 million, and it grossed 150, which is the dream. But there's going to be a sequel to help kind of counterbalance that controversial ending.
Yes, which supports our theory that there'll be a crawl to.
This, of course.
I'm going to lose that battle.
Matt, what do you got sitting at 4?
All right, this is the one you're going to hate, Rye. I had to cheat. This was seriously difficult. It really, really was. And I didn't want to just pick 47 meters down and give the Jawheads a crappy movie.
Come on.
So I'm going with a scene featuring a visually impaired person who's completely 100% blind. And he is a colonel, and he's about to commit suicide because he was not born blind. He feels that this disability has made his life not worth living anymore. And his young friend, protege, factotum, whatever you want to call this kid, comes in, catches him in the act of potentially killing himself, and stops him. But during that exchange, things get almost violent, and the gun is turned on the kid. And that's when Al Pacino delivers the line, "I'm in the dark here."
Scent of a Woman?
Yes, well done, well done.
Oh, my God.
Hey, man, it's better than 47 meters down.
I don't know.
Jesus.
I mean, it's arguable,
Are you kidding?
actually.
What? Come on, guys. Are you
I don't
going to back me
remember
up on
Mandy
that?
Moore being in
Definitely
Scent of a
better.
Woman, so I don't know.
I mean, Mandy Moore would have made the movie better, let's be honest. But it's a great movie. It's Al Pacino. Just overacting at his best.
Yeah. I mean, was the scene shot in his perspective of not seeing anything?
It was
No.
not. It was not. But you really start to understand his the level of his depression. So I don't know. I think it's a good scene and a good movie. I like Scent of a Woman.
Yeah.
It's a little old, but it's still a good movie.
All right, swings it over to my number 4. In all honesty, as I mentioned, I had Lights Out. Quick substitution in here is a wonderful scene. I remember when we reviewed the movie on Cinemajaw, I commented how beautiful the sunset was as it gets dark, and that's the first Sicario.
Oh,
And the
man,
scene
that's a
here
great scene.
is when the sunset goes down and they're all lined up and they're going to go into the drug tunnels that are going to lead them to the cartel, and they got to put on the night vision then inside the tunnels. I rewatched the scene, and the only reason I left it as an honorable mention is it's really the moment of that sun going down and them walking into the
Such
tunnel.
a beautiful shot.
But it really only lasts for about a minute, and then once they get a little bit deeper in the tunnel actually produces light because they have electricity down there and everything. The night vision doesn't come into play like you think it really is going to. But still, it at least gets those feelings like, oh my God, I'm terrified for these people
So
to
great.
go down into a tunnel.
Great pick, dude.
So we'll go with that. Into our 3s we go, guys.
So for our number 3, we have either the last or one of the last scenes of Vertigo from 1958 by Hitchcock. So this is the scene where Scotty is taking Judy back to the bell tower, and this is the woman that he thought had killed herself by throwing herself off the bell tower. And throughout all this confusion and this fake murder plot, he's kind of become obsessed with this woman. And they're talking about why did they act how they did in the bell tower. And even though it's outside and it's broad daylight, in the bell tower is really dark on both of their faces. And when the nun walks up and she just says, I think I've heard something, when Judy actually falls off to her death, then it's just so quick and it's just very startling. None of it makes any sense, and I think that's why it's so creepy to me. But it was cool to see that scene is very dark, too.
Love the whole ending of that film.
It's a great movie.
It is. I remember watching that and being like, wait, what? The entire ending, I was like, oh, okay.
I remember my first time, I must have saw it as like maybe a 10-year-old kid, and I didn't get it at all.
Yeah.
I was sitting there, maybe my parents were watching it, and I remember being like, what's going on? Is this the girl from the beginning? I don't know what they're watching. This is weird.
Yeah,
and
I
then
don't
later,
think-
really appreciating it.
I don't think I understood it either the first time.
Did you guys ever see High Anxiety, the Mel Brooks send-up of Hitchcock and that one in particular, Vertigo in particular, but all the Hitchcock films? It's good. I mean, it's Mel Brooks.
Okay.
National treasure.
Thank you. Ryan, I could tell the look in his eyes. He's like,
No,
you're a
I was just
bonehead.
thinking, like, here, we're talking about Hitchcock, one of the great films of all
It's
time,
a
Vertigo.
spoof of Vertigo.
And then he right away goes to Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks is a genius, man.
I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying you can sometimes leave it and talk about
Jesus.
Hitchcock.
No, we could talk about other movies too, Ryan.
Pivot to History of the World Part 2.
Thank you. All right, that kicks it to me, and I'm going full on darkness here. You were talking about night vision. This comes into play in this scene too. One of the tensest moments of just about any horror film. It's when Starling is being stalked in the dark house by Buffalo Bill. I can tell maybe you guys had this on your list.
Oh, we were arguing so hard about getting into our list, and it made into our honorable mention.
Okay, good. All right.
Our
I'm
Uber
shocked
driver.
this isn't a number one, to be honest.
Really?
I really am.
I got some more.
It was that terrifying.
Oof. How about it?
We asked our Uber driver what kind of scenes he liked, and the only one he could say was this one. And I was like, see, people love this one. This is great.
I think what makes it so terrifying is the fact that he can see her, and this is to Jodie Foster's credit. She acts it so well. You can just tell that she has no idea where anything is. She can't see the hand in front of her face. But Buffalo Bill is sort of taunting her. He's playing with her almost. Like he's reaching out like he's going to touch her hair and stuff. It's really, really, really scary. Such a creepy-ass scene.
And it's really everything that mounts up to the ending, too. I mean, her finally discovering and thinking that this is where Buffalo Bill's at, and finally goes in that house, which is creepy.
Right, and he's got the upper hand. Ooh,
totally.
Yeah.
Everything about that. I thought it'd be a number one. I'm shocked.
Well, why didn't you have it at number one?
Well,
there you go. There you go.
My number 3 might be my best pick. I don't know what it's doing at 3 now that I look at it. Rewatched the scene yesterday.
Okay.
And you're going to love this pick.
All right.
Unless you have it on your list. It's a sci-fi film. Came out in 2014.
Okay.
All right.
So far, so good.
It stars Chris Evans. Mm-hmm. The film is Snowpiercer.
I knew you were going to say that once you said
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, and I love that movie so much.
So here's the scene. Let me set it up because it's been a while since you may have seen this. Here's a refresher here for you, Matt. Obviously, the people from the back of the train are trying to get to the front of the train.
Right.
And they get to a point where this humongous fight scene is about to take place, and the great Tilda Swinton comes out, makes a speech, and all of a sudden, they turn off all the lights in the train car, in this one particular train car, and then they go into a tunnel which cuts the light from the outside, and all the people from the front of the train have night vision and axes.
Yes.
And a humongous fight breaks out, and I'm talking about like 75, 80 people where half can see in night vision and the others are just stabbing away with whatever they have.
Mm-hmm. This movie is basically Murder on the Orient Express on steroids. Like, it's awesome.
Eventually, Chris Evans calls for fire in the back of the train, which means some little kid's got to get a torch and go running through all the train cars again, and they bring fire back into this train car so that they can see, and there's a fair fight. It's a awesome moment in that incredible movie.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, this was the first big movie after Chris Evans got Captain America. Yeah,
absolutely.
And
almost unrecognizable in this.
Yeah, because he had this. My favorite piece of trivia about that movie is, so he had this beard, this huge beard for Snowpiercer, and they had called Chris Evans back to do the post-credit scene for Avengers, but he had the beard, so Chris Evans had to put his hand over his face in the shawarma scene, the post-credits shawarma scene of Avengers, because he couldn't shave his beard for Snowpiercer. So he had to put his hand over his beard.
Sort of works out for the scene because they all look so bored and tired. Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite, like, Chris Evans Snowpiercer trivia bits. So it's so funny they had that on your list.
We've talked about Snowpiercer on the show, how much we love it. So if for some reason, Jawheads, you have not seen it, it's well worth the trip on the Snowpiercer train.
Completely agree.
Into our twos.
So our second one is probably one of my absolute favorite films, and it's called El Orfanato, which in English is The Orphanage. We were talking about Guillermo del Toro before.
It's a great one.
He exec produced it, but it is actually the feature debut for Bayona. Excellent film, despite Fallen Kingdom. Do not give up hope for Bayona.
He hasn't lived up to the potential, though, of The Orphanage ever since.
He could do so well, and then he comes out with that film. But, so this scene that I really, really like, so if you haven't seen it, there's a huge plot line, but the general idea is that this woman is now alone in this orphanage that she used to live in, and her son has been missing, her husband has now left, because he kind of can't take it anymore. And she was in this scene that I'm describing is trying to call upon the spirits of the murdered children that she used to live with in the orphanage. And so in the scene, she's up against a wall and she's playing this game where she hits the the wall, and it's like un, dos, tres, toca la pared, which in English is like 1, 2, 3, touch the wall is the direct like translation. And it's this game where if you keep hitting it, and she keeps doing it over and
it's
over.
It's like a schoolyard thing.
It's a schoolyard
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And so when she turns around, it's pitch black, but she's in pitch black. And then she keeps doing it, trying to summon these spirits, and then she turns around and the door opens to some light. And then she's like, oh my God, the spirits are here. She keeps going. And then it's so creepy because the idea is that when you knock on the wall, like the people playing the game run. And then by the time that, like close to you, and by the time that you finish, you turn around and they have to freeze. And if they don't freeze, they have to start over. And whoever gets to you first wins. So she keeps playing and she turns around and all these like dead children's spirits are all now in this living room with her alone in the dark, and they're getting
man.
closer and closer and closer.
I would just stop knocking at that.
But she's calling on them because she's at her last resort, and she needs those children to help her find her child who's been missing. And it's her last resort, and it's the creepiest, scariest scene ever. But it's also like one of the most brilliant, amazing.
It's a
Unbelievable movie.
Great movie.
It's so good.
I always say it's probably my favorite horror film.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
where
really
I
is.
put it right up there.
It's great.
It's not my favorite. It's in my top 3.
Yeah.
Love it.
I'd go Ring personally, but that's another podcast. All right, that kicks it to me. And you had to have known that this movie would come up. I'm sure I'm crossing over at this point. It is the triple sunset scene in the movie Pitch Black with the great, and I said the great, Vin Diesel.
I also have Pitch Black at number 2.
Yeah. I mean, it just belongs on this list. It's a really tough list to research, and obviously this is like one of those ones that just pops right into your head. The premise of the movie is great, and Vin Diesel has, obviously he's Riddick, which would go on to spawn questionable sequels. Some people think that the sequels are okay. But anyway, he plays this criminal Riddick who has special eyesight and can see in the dark, which is very convenient since he is in a movie where he's in a 20-day solar eclipse or something like that, and it's pitch black.
Well, my scene that I was going to highlight there is when all the characters they got to carry that weird machine, and it's got those like glowing arms. And they also got some lights. The lights go out, and this is a moment where you're wondering. One character finally ventures off to the right by himself, and he's almost like in a desert. And this is that kind of moment where the lights go out, and you know it's really bad for the character. You can't see anything around him. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a flask of whiskey, and you think he's just going to get drunk, or you don't know what he's going to do. But he takes that whiskey, holds it in his mouth, lights up a lighter, and blows the whiskey to make like a fireball. And it's that fireball that you see all the aliens around him about, 1,000
That is a good scene as well.
It's pretty damn cool.
Hell yeah.
When was this released?
Oof. I mean, we'll throw it in the fish tank.
Throw it in the fish tank. Pitch Black.
I would guess around
2000 or
2000 maybe, yeah.
I know what movie I'm watching tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You guys have never
No,
seen it?
never seen it.
It's the precursor. It's the first one in the Chronicles of Riddick.
Okay.
It's actually another one that's way better than it should be.
Definitely worth a spin. A quick honorable mention for me at number 2. I don't know, does this count? I was going with the final conclusion in Bird Box.
I was thinking about that too.
Okay, it takes place during the day, yes, but because they're wearing the blindfolds, and a lot of it is shot with them barely being able to see through the blindfolds, and they're listening for the birds and trying to get out of there, that entire ending where they're in the forests and they don't know what's going on, what's out there, it's really scary because we can't see it as well. So, honorable mention.
Yeah, it works as an honorable for sure.
All right, here it is. Number 1s. This is big. Who's going here? Nate?
I'm
Claudia?
going. So we decided to really kind of push the boundaries of the question, and so we went with a scene in what I personally believe is one of the best movies of all time. It takes place at night. The scene in Jurassic Park when we got introduced for the first time to the T-Rex, to our good buddy T-Rex. And when Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm and Lexi and that whole crew get their ass kicked by the T-Rex, that is a scene that got me into wanting to make movies. It's the first time I ever saw that, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life. There is a amazing documentary that came with, if you bought the movie on VHS and then you bought like the special edition or whatever, that
the two tape.
Yes, those 2 tapes like you got back in, and then you got in '97 with the special edition Star Wars ones. You got those 2 tapers. That is narrated by James Earl Jones.
Oh, perfect. And almost as good as Morgan Freeman.
Right, exactly.
It's a toss-up, honestly.
And they go on to like this they basically dedicate like 25 minutes to talking about just making that scene and how it was a combination of both the animatronic T-Rex, the CGI T-Rex, how it was shot partially in Kauai, partially at Studio 16 on the Warner Brothers lot. How the animatronic T-Rex gave them headaches, lighting it, shooting it. And it is just a fascinating scene to watch how they made that happen. So that's what we went with.
I think one of my favorite parts of that scene, though, is the fact that the little kids have the flashlight, and the biggest up close reveal is in that scene of the T-Rex where, she has the flashlight and she's pointing at the window, and then the T-Rex just like slowly comes on and it's his eye, and that is like, it's almost like, I mean, we're clearly like bookending it with Spielberg classics, but I think that part is also really similar to like the first time that we actually like see Jaws. It's like kind of that anticipation of like, oh, you're really big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, a classic.
It is a classic. Did we talk about on this show about how somebody almost died inside of the animatronic T-Rex? Oh, so the T-Rex almost actually ate one of the puppeteers or people that were putting it together because the animatronics were turned on accidentally while somebody was inside fixing things and adjusting things. I can't remember where I heard this fact.
And like the claw, or it was the mouth. And like, if I think I know what you're saying, but I'm not 100%. And like the mouth basically like closed.
Something, right. Nobody was hurt. Like the guy got out, but it was like a touch and go moment for yeah.
So even fake dinosaurs can be scary.
Yeah. Hey, Phil, can you look up that fact? Somebody getting trapped in the animatronic T-Rex. All right, because I want to get the story right for the jawheads. All right, that swings it to me. At number 1, Rye, you could probably guess.
I can't think of an Avengers movie that takes place in the dark.
Well done. So we talked about our favorite horror movies. I think this one is mine. It's a movie that is very much of its time. You saw it once. It's almost like a single-use ticket. And once you rip it, you can't go back. But when you saw it that first time, it was completely different from anything I had ever seen in the theater before or since, frankly. And the scene in particular is what I would call the final entry in this character's video diary. It's a found footage movie. I'm talking about the Blair Witch Project.
Great choice.
Yeah. She's sitting in front of the camera, and this is like an iconic shot. It's on the cover of the movie at this point. Everybody knows it's been spoofed so many times, but such a raw acting moment from this gal, and like the snot is coming out of her nose, the tears are just flowing down her face, and she really makes you believe that she knows she's going to die, Such a raw scene, and it's completely in the dark. And I think that this movie, probably more than a lot of horror movies now or since, made use of the dark and our fear of the dark better than most, because they never really show you any monsters. That's kind of the genius of the Blair Witch Project. It's just your fear of the dark that made it effective.
No, it was the Blair Witch Project took the Jaws premise of just using the idea of something maybe being there.
Right.
But took it on land.
And never, ever
showed anything.
Yeah. It was, I love that movie.
Good pick.
Thanks.
My movie, the scene that I'm going to bring up is what I think is the best in the dark scene. That's why it's my number 1, but not probably the movie itself on a level of Blair Witch. Hopefully somebody else has seen this one in the room. It came out in 2016. Somewhat of a smaller movie, but positive reviews. This is a movie where a bunch of Detroit teenagers get the idea to break into wealthy houses, and they pick a blind guy's house to break into. The film is called Don't Breathe.
Yes. This is a good one.
And the idea is that they're going to break into this house. He's blind. and they're going to get his money. Well, he ends up being home, or he comes home, and now they still think they can get away with the crime for a moment because he's blind. Well, he ends up being, like an old vet, and he has all these skills. The scene that I'm talking about in the dark is two of the characters, the girl and one of the guys, are trapped in his basement. And because he's blind, so to make them not see, he cuts the lights and the power. So now nobody can see in the basement. He can't see, nor can they. And the way they end up shooting this is in that kind of like... it's not necessarily night vision. It's almost like their ghost-like vision. I don't know what you would call that. They're white-skinned.
Yeah.
It's not the green night vision. I don't know.
Overexposed?
Because the eyeballs, what make it too, they dilated the eyeballs like it would be if you were in the dark. And it's them searching around the basement. And because he's deaf, he's supposedly has, more keen on his sense of hearing. So he hears everything they're doing in the basement, and he's trying to grab them. They're running around. It is so tense of a scene. I remember just like holding my breath for like 2 minutes while the scene played out.
It was a fun horror movie with a nice, clever premise.
It really was. And then there's even a great moment later where they're trying to get out, and the dog, he puts a dog after him.
Yeah.
Because they had knocked out the dog is what it was. And then when they're getting away, the dog comes too. And they get in the car, and then the dog basically
attacks the car. It's the Cujo moment, right?
It's so great.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good moments in that movie.
It's like a movie that begins with the end, because we see that ending scene first where she's being dragged, and it's also kind of like People Under the Stairs, where you have to escape from a house of horrors. Mm-hmm. Great movie, actually. Another one. Way better than it should have been.
Right. Don't Breathe. If you haven't seen it, well worth a spin. Any honorable mentions before we go to break? What do we got, guys?
Yeah, we have 7 as our honorable mention.
Let's go rapid fire.
Yeah, mainly because of the way that it was processed.
Oh, you mean actually the movie 7?
7.
Oh, I thought you meant you had 7 honorable mentions.
No.
I'm like, fire away.
No, the movie 7 with Morgan Freeman, actually. Hello.
Full circle.
Full circle here. But bunch of dark scenes. I think my 2 favorite are probably the apathy scene where Morgan Freeman is telling Brad Pitt he's about to retire, and he's like, no one cares, everyone's just apathetic, and it's very a deep emotional moment, and they're in this bar that's supposed to be lively, but it's completely dark except for their faces. And then the other one is the iconic the time when they discover the sloth victim.
That's, all the victims are gruesome.
They're all gross
Yeah.
and gruesome, but that particular one was so dark, and then there's these dark things hanging from the ceiling, and then you realize it's air fresheners, and that's just unbelievable to me, and it's a great film, such a good film.
It is.
Yeah, I had one which was in light of everybody just absolutely hating, rightfully so, on Game of Thrones' battle scene. I just wanted to mention how well the night shot for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 and the Battle of Hogwarts was shot. That whole thing takes place in the dark, and that whole battle takes place at night, and you can see everything, and everything is shot, whether it's outside in the courtyard or it's inside the castle. It's so well done versus what transpired in Game of Thrones, and I think that was one that we almost put on our list too, kind of just the contrast between the two major medieval style battles.
One for me, not mentioned, I'm sort of shocked.
Go.
Not worthy of 17 sequels, but Paranormal Activity. The first one was pretty good.
It was.
Yeah.
I'd give it credit. And then the only other one, not totally dark scene, but the end of Apocalypse Now, when he goes into the cave. And you get the horrors.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have
Marlon Brando.
I'm surprised you didn't have The Descent on your list. One of your favorites.
I do love that one.
And I was trying to think of monsters that don't like the light, and we get that tropey scene where you light the match and then there's a monster. You mentioned a great one earlier, but Gremlins, does that fit? Kind of, maybe. Anyway, my only other honorable mention was Clue. All the lights go out. A gunshot goes, a woman screams, you hear somebody hit the floor, the lights come back on, and somebody's
number
dead.
One. Why is that an honorable mention?
Really?
That should have been on your list for sure.
It's a great one.
Oh, I would have had that if I thought about it. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that moment.
Yeah, great movie.
Wow, if we missed your favorite scene that takes place in the dark and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or write us an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. What we're going to do is take a quick break. When we come back, we have a review of
The Big Hack
and trivia, kitchen cast movie trivia. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby.
In honor of Cinemajaw's Morgan Freeman Month, we celebrate with this clip from The Shawshank Redemption, where Freeman has a parole hearing.
The popcorn can't be beat.
Please sit down. Ellis Boyd Redding, your files say you've served 40 years of a life sentence. You feel you've been rehabilitated?
Rehabilitated? Well, now, let me see. You know, I don't have any idea what that means.
Well, it means you're ready to rejoin society.
I know what you think it means, Sonny. To me, it's just a made-up word. A politician's word, so that young fellas like yourself can wear a suit and a tie and have a job. What do you really want to know? Am I sorry for what I did?
Well, are you?
There's not a day goes by I don't feel regret. Not because I'm in here, because you think I should. I look back on the way I was then. A young, stupid kid who committed that terrible crime. I want to talk to him. I want to try to talk some sense to him. Tell him the way things are. But I can't. That kid's long gone, and this old man is all that's left. I gotta live with that. Rehabilitated. It's just a bullshit word. So you go on and stamp your form, Sonny, and stop wasting my time. Because to tell you the truth, I don't give a shit.
Delicious things to eat. The popcorn can't be beat.
Hey Jawheads, it's Matt K. Noticed we've had a lot of new listeners lately, thank you, and lots of people have been asking, hey, how can we help support the show? The best answer I can give you would be to check us out on Patreon, see all the things that you can unlock if you support the show, and at any level of support, you unlock our bonus content archive. We're adding to it all the time, extra reviews, extra interviews, sometimes just funny stories from us, things that just didn't fit into the normal podcast that we want to get out there and make special for our patrons. So if you're interested, check us out. It's at patreon.com/Cinemajaw. Great way to support the show and get yourself some extra stuff. And thanks.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Megan Marie, Nate, and Claudia, whose short film, Dear Frankie, is making the festival runs, and it actually had a special screening last week, right?
Yeah. We were talking a little bit during the break that you guys just screened at an Oscar qualifying festival, so how did that go?
It went really, really well. It was called Indie Shorts International Film Festival, presented by Heartland. We talked a little bit about it at the top of the episode, but basically there were incredible filmmakers and incredible films. Probably one of the best selections of films that we've seen during our festival circuit for sure. And the best narrative short film, and the best documentary short were chosen, and thus puts them into the pile to be nominated for an Oscar. And this past year, the narrative was Brotherhood, which was excellent. It was about a Tunisian family and kind of the Syrian conflict. And then the other one was St. Louis Superman, which is actually an MTV documentary series they're starting to kind of do, to go around to different cities and doing little documentaries about.
I was wondering what happened to MTV.
There. Yeah, they're doing things.
They're still around, huh?
Yeah, and that one was about a state representative doing a bunch of things for his kind of underserved community, which was really great. But we saw some incredible films, absolutely amazing, met incredible filmmakers, and it was definitely one of the best film festivals that we have seen, and it was incredible to see our film on the same screen as all these films.
Wow, congrats. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. One other thing I wanted to bring up, I think it's Claudia, you have some background in VR.
Yeah, my undergrad was called telecommunications, so that was basically video production. And then with my PhD, I am studying virtual reality interaction, those kind of things.
Do you see like feature film sort of going in that direction? Not fully, but seeing like something like we saw
Well,
in
don't
Dark
mention
Mirror.
Warhammer.
No, I was going to say
Okay.
Dark Mirror did that episode where we're choosing our own adventure. Do you see something going to VR where it's sort of a feature film, but we're in the film?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a while, but I've watched a few short films that are in VR, so they're all just one take with the 360 camera. And it's interesting to see the blend of those two worlds, and it's really cool because it seems like, I mean, there aren't any rules at all. It doesn't seem like there's any standards, and no one really knows quite how to tell a story in that way. So I think that's kind of my goal, is to like hopefully make some good videos and get better at VR content creation. And I feel like that's kind of where the field is moving, like combining different mediums and that sort of thing.
Claudia, do you want an idea? I just had a great
Yeah,
idea.
sure.
Speaking of like In the Dark and Clue, wouldn't Clue make an awesome VR movie?
That would be
You could
really
go to
fun.
different parts of the mansion and see where people are when the murder takes place, stuff like that.
Yeah, you could potentially be the murderer.
You could.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
I
You
like
heard it here first, folks.
Again, for the jawheads that want to follow along the film Dear Frankie and maybe see if it's playing at a fest upcoming in their town, where's the best place to do so online?
At Dear Frankie Film, you can DM us, and we can point you in the direction of where to see it, where to attend, how to contact us, how to ask us about our updates, etc.
Do it.
Awesome. Before we get to trivia, and before we get to our other review,
Yes.
we did throw a few items into the fish tank.
Yeah, a couple to a tree.
And I know Phil wants to swim up to the top and have some fun. Let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, there's some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for letting me out. We do have a few questions.
Were there any alligators in there this week?
Does Parker count?
Nah, a little bit.
He's snappier than me, so I'll give him credit. Our first question: does Morgan Freeman narrate in $1 Million Baby? He does. His character Scrap Iron Dupree's has a bit of a double role in that he's a live-action character as well as serving as the narrator. Our next question: what is an alligator's foot called? I found a couple of things out about this. One, an alligator's foot is indeed just a foot. There's nothing
else.
No, it is just a foot. 2, alligator feet are used in the South sort of as a rabbit's paw situation. They are taxidermized and used as good luck charms for gamblers.
Gross.
That's also the least surprising thing I've ever heard. But
Yeah,
continue.
absolutely not surprised. And then 3, while I was looking up alligator anatomy, I did also find out they don't have scales. Instead, they have scutes. And I just love the word scoot.
I think scoots is just another word for scales, though. I mean, clearly they have scales.
Well, all I'm saying is that the article I read made a big distinction.
Okay.
I'm not going to say scoots.
Well, you're going to be wrong. You also wouldn't call it a foot, so...
Scoots just sounds too cute for a gator, though, right?
That's why I love it.
Yeah. Look at you, little Scooty.
What is the Betty White alligator movie? Did you say Lake Placid, Ryan? Mm-hmm. It is indeed Lake Placid.
Well done, Rye.
It came out in 1999.
Oh, my gator flicks.
And it sits with a pretty 46% rotten. When did Pitch Black come out? That was the year 2000. Again, I think you were right on the head, Ryan.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then our last one was just the story of the person getting stuck in the T-Rex animatronic. That is 100% real. During the last 3 weeks of filming, they shot all of the T-Rex scenes, and the crew setting up the animatronic had to work pretty quickly so that it could be ready. They had to glue the rubber skin on, and in order to reach some places, a crew member had to crawl inside the hydraulic system. and work from the inside, during which a power outage occurred and the hydraulics shut off, collapsing every tube, and somebody almost died. So there is a full article that I will send to Matt, and he can put in the show links. It'll describe the situation much better, and it is I don't read, and it is a good read. So,
well, there you go.
So that's what he was doing in the fish tank.
I don't know. I don't remember how I came across that fact. Somehow during the research on this show, and it never came out, so I'm glad that it came out today.
Matt, we always end the Cinemajaw episodes by saying, if you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review online.
Yeah, and hey, somebody listened to us. We got a new review, and we will read them, whether they are positive or not. This one happens to be kind of a glowing one, Ryan, so I'm happy to read. This gentleman starts off saying, "The greatest movies podcast ever. These guys are fantastic. They follow a formula and themes that make every episode fun and enjoyable. The fact that they do not often see eye to eye on a certain opinion makes this podcast all the more entertaining. If you are someone who likes movies, you will love this podcast, and it will change the way you watch movies." From The Vigilant. And he's from the United States, Ryan.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's our goal, to sort of
we love getting the reviews.
Change the way you see movies, so thank you.
Was that everything in the fish tank there, Phil?
You know it, Ryan.
All right, jump back in there.
Will do.
Matt, we have one more review. It's a Netflix movie, is it not?
Indeed. The Big Hack. Ryan, no matter which end of the political spectrum you lean towards, there's one thing we can all agree on. Social media is a powerful and unprecedented tool, some might say weapon, more on that later, that has been leveraged to legally and perhaps otherwise change people's minds around elections. In 2016, this all came to a head when the data firm Cambridge Analytica became the notorious name that it is today. But what really happened in 2016? That is the aim of The Big Hack, a new documentary from Netflix. First, Ryan, let me ask you a question. Seriously, what Disney villain are you?
Maleficent.
What do you think your Patronus might be if you were a Harry Potter character? For that matter, are you a Harry or a Ron or a Hermione?
Probably.
You're a Hermione. These seemingly fun, innocuous, and innocent questions are commonly found on Facebook quizzes, and some before 2016 were likely set up by the firm Cambridge Analytica, who at one point may have been the most successful private intelligence agency on the planet. They use questions like these to gather what they brag to be 5,000 data points on every voter in the 2016 U.S. election. And even if you never answered on one of these quizzes, Ryan, because you hate fun like you do, you were likely exposed anyway if any of your Facebook friends answered one of them.
I might be a Harry.
The permissions given to these apps by Facebook were staggering. Directors Kareem Amir and Jahan Nujam follow several characters, including the narrator David Carroll, a media professor whose international lawsuit is the main focus of the film. We also meet a couple of whistleblowers from Cambridge Analytica, including Brittany Kaiser, who may just be one of the most dangerous people in the world. They are nothing short of fascinating. First, the doc is beautifully shot, and the graphics are very immersive. There are no talking head interviews and plenty of movement, which is very refreshing. It sets itself up firmly in the present tense, which gives you the feeling that the developments are unfolding in real time as we watch the film, rather than recapping the facts of the past. This upped my excitement level, Ryan. The main detraction I would offer is twofold. One, the story of this debacle is still in the process of unraveling, as new evidence was just dumped by Brittany Kaiser yesterday at the time of this recording. And two, it hardly offers any answers as to what's next and how to solve the problem of online privacy and manipulation. It does, however, paint an effective picture of paranoia and gives you the sense of being naked before the internet. Like every purchase, swipe, location, book you read, relationship status is known, commoditized, sold, and weaponized. This isn't science fiction, as the film points out. This isn't even the future. This is the past and the present. For instance, Ryan, ever wonder what you would look like when you're 70? I got this new app on my phone.
Wow. I'm sure I'll still be handsome.
Yeah, probably.
It sounds scary. You're right. I like how you led that up before the clip. You had mentioned this could be a horror film and not a documentary. I'm scared of the internet at these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about just getting ads, like when I'm talking about something in a room.
That's interesting you say that, because at one point during the movie, David Carroll actually says, has anybody ever had the experience where they get an ad and they think that the microphone on their phone must be listening to them? And every kid in the classroom raises their hand. I mean, this is like, he goes on to explain that that's probably not the case, and it's just the fact that these little quizzes have become so good at predicting, and it's not just the quizzes, that's just one way they've gotten this information on us, but they've built such the dossier that they can predict our behavior to the point where it can be manipulated quite easily.
It's crazy.
It's really scary, man. Really, really scary.
So we're really in the Matrix.
Messed up. And Brittany Kaiser, fascinating person. I mean, scary to like almost the Julian Assange level conspirator. You just don't know which side this person is on. And if she's completely full of it, the things that she knows and the things that she did will just blow your hair back. It's amazing.
Crazy. We breaking this one down further?
Yeah. So
something else you wanted to highlight?
When we meet Brittany, that's what I wanted to highlight. A lot of documentaries fall into the trap of talking heads, especially when you get a fascinating subject. You just want to spend time interviewing them. But she's in a pool. You know, she's just in a pool in her bathing suit. I think she's got a drink with her. She's clearly in some tropical location. She's got sunglasses on. She just appears very like almost apathetic and relaxed. It's like very Bond villain-esque.
Wow. Like it.
A scene that I didn't like as much is when they try to wrap things up, but I think that the story is just so big, it feels kind of clumsy, and there's a lot of loose ends hanging at the end.
Need a sequel, is what you're saying.
Well, we're getting it. I'm check it out on Twitter. She's still dumping stuff.
How about influences?
Citizen 4, pretty easy influence. It has that feeling like but it's tough because Citizen 4, I mentioned I've seen a lot of documentaries about the internet. Didn't scare me as much as this movie. It'll really make you feel like we're at the end of the world almost.
Is there anything that you learned here, Matt?
Yeah, man. Just how helpless we are against social media.
So what you're saying is you learned more in this one than you did Crawl.
Yeah, a little bit more. A little bit more.
How about a movie poster quote?
Yeah, it's be sure to share my review on Facebook.
That's one of your better ones,
trying to
Matt.
be clever there.
Yeah, really good. How many Jaws?
I'm giving this one a solid 3.5, man.
Nice.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think Netflix has sort of done it, and it did not escape my attention, the irony of the fact that Netflix is also a giant data corporation that is collecting a dossier on our likes and dislikes in the film world, so I thought that was interesting.
When you watched it, did you feel more helpless than when you started?
Yes, because I'm actually in marketing and social media as my trade, and I thought I knew a lot of stuff, and it just goes to show you how little we all know.
Wow.
It's scary.
Gloomy.
It's gloomy. Wow. But just a hell of a watch. I loved it.
All right. 3.5 Jaws.
You heard it here.
I'll have to check this one out for sure. All right. We'd like to end the podcast with a fun trivia segment. This is the first time I can ever remember this happening because we have 3 guests, Megan Marie, Nate, and Claudia, on one side of the studio. Matt got very intimidated, and before we started the podcast, he said, hey, what do you think of this idea? Let me call in Phil from the fish tank, and he can be my teammate, so I'm not so intimidated.
Right, and we should mention
something like that.
Phil has not written the clues this week.
No.
Because that would make it unfair. He doesn't know the clues.
Instead, I wrote the clues, and I sent them into a computer, and now I see what's happening here, describing it. Phil has left the fish tank. He's about to walk into the studio. We have Matt's son, Parker, who's going to read all the clues. Parker, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What's it like in the fish tank?
Fun.
Fun?
Well, now that you're there, of course it is.
I thought it might be dirty because Phil lives in there when he's not doing the podcast.
Look at him, though.
I don't know what help Phil is going. Now, Phil is over to Matt's right. There's now, if I can do the math here, there is now 6 people in the studio, the most we've ever had on Cinemajaw.
I know. I feel like we're doing a role-playing podcast.
If I get confused,
Let's get the dice out.
We'll see what happens here.
It's our own game of Clue.
Because the movie The Kitchen is coming out, the stars of this, because we didn't go eye for an eye, to recap, is Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish, Elizabeth Moss. Those are the 3 leads.
I'm really hoping I get all the Melissa McCarthy questions.
Okay, we're playing kitchen cast movie trivia. It works like this. 8 questions, back and forth. If anybody misses one, there's steals. And if you get hung up on anybody's on a question, you do have one lifeline. Pitchman Parker, help me. And Parker has a clue, just a clue to all the questions. They start off easy. Since you guys are our guest, you get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt go first.
We definitely want to go first.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Yeah.
Question number 1, here we go. In 2013, Melissa McCarthy starred in Identity Thief with this Arrested Development star.
Jason Bateman.
1-0.
And there goes the Melissa McCarthy question. That's it.
Team Dear Frankie. Question.
Do you know who any of those other actors are, Phil?
Elizabeth Moss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
She was
okay.
in Us.
She was in Us?
I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, no. That's helpful to me.
That's going to be their question now, Matt.
This is crazy.
Okay, here's the Us question.
2. Elizabeth Moss pops up in this film that came out earlier this year. It's a horror film directed by Jordan Peele.
I would have known that anyway, yeah.
Her and Tim Heidecker.
Thank you, Phil.
They were my favorite parts.
All right. Those are the easy questions. 1-1. Question 3, back over to Dear Frankie. Tiffany Haddish starred with Queen Latifah, Regina Hall, and Jada Pinkett Smith in this 2017 comedy. Yeah.
I think I know it.
I don't know.
Tiffany Haddish,
Okay.
Queen Latifah, Regina Hall, Jada Pinkett Smith.
Is it Girls Trip?
Wow.
Good
Dear
job.
Frankie, bringing the muscle here. This is
Yeah.
big. Question 4 over to Matt and Phil. Melissa McCarthy has a small part in This Is 40, which starred Paul Rudd, and what actress played his wife in the film?
It's real life.
Closer
Judd
to the
Apatow.
mic. Closer to the mic.
It's real life Judd Apatow's wife.
Yeah. Her last name is Mann.
Leslie Mann.
Would you break, Ryan? Jeez.
All the glass in the fish tank's coming out, water spewing everywhere.
Everybody perfect. That is correct. Leslie Mann. 2-2. Question 5.
That was a
back
great
over to
team
Dear
effort
Frankie.
there because I knew the last name, he knew the first name.
Unbelievable.
It's
They're
great.
getting harder here. Question 5. 2014, the film Tammy saw Melissa McCarthy on a road trip with her grandmother. Who played the grandmother in the movie? What actress? Melissa McCarthy and who? You do have a lifeline if you need it. It's question 5, only 8 questions.
I don't have a clue. Sorry.
Do you guys want a lifeline?
I won't even know it.
We're going to save our lifeline for the next
They are
question.
going to save their lifeline. You
We
can
could put
take a guess,
Parker
though.
in there.
You could throw a guess.
All right, should we use our lifeline? Let's just go for it. All right, Parker.
Wow, they
help
have
us out.
changed.
We changed.
Pitch in Parker here. Question 5. What actress starred with Melissa McCarthy in Tammy?
Your clue is, in a car, over a cliff she goes.
What would that be?
There's
in a
really
car,
only 2 potential actresses that
over
could
a
possibly
cliff she
be.
goes. Good clue for Parker being that
thought I knew
young
who
to
it was,
come
but
up
I
with a
don't.
clue like this.
He's well versed, Ryan.
Well versed.
I trained him in the arts of cinema.
It's a classic film I think he's referencing.
I think he's referencing Rat Race, to be honest, because they go over a cliff, don't they? No, maybe not. Oh, God, I don't know.
I don't know.
Did it help you at all?
No.
Any guess?
No.
Matt, chance to take a steal here.
It was Thelma and Louise that he's referencing.
Yeah.
So it's got to either be Susan Sarandon or Gina Davis, right?
I thought it was Goldie Hawn because I swear to God she was in a movie with her recently. but-
Wait, read it again. What's the question?
2014 Tammy, Melissa
Tammy.
McCarthy on a road trip with her grandmother. Who
It's
plays
Susan
the grandmother?
Sarandon. I would guess Susan Sarandon. Would you agree?
Sure. Wasn't that the same plot as the Jason Bateman
Nice.
movie though? She was on a
Close.
road trip with that.
She
dude?
likes her road trip movies. They take the lead here, 3-2, and question 6 is over to Matt and Phil.
Sorry, now I feel bad I convinced you to use the lifeline. Nate's like,
Guys, here we go. Matt, question 6. Name the 2018 movie in which Tiffany Haddish starred with aging basketball players, one of which was Shaq.
okay, now this is where I would get the lifeline.
I don't watch sports movies. I have no
Same
idea.
here. I kind of remember that
It
premise,
was reviewed here on the show.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
By yours truly. I had to sit through that one.
Pitch in, Parker.
Wow,
Let's get
pitch man.
back to back here.
What was the name of the movie that Tiffany Haddish starred in with aging basketball players, one of them being Shaq? Question 6.
Not Auntie Drew Barrymore.
Not Auntie Drew Barrymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like Auntie?
Yes.
Okay. Not Auntie Drew Barrymore. Who was the actress who starred?
What was the name of the movie?
Oh. What?
I don't know.
I don't understand that clue at all.
Yeah, that's tough. But I think if you know the title of the movie,
Well, if
it's
I knew
probably a
the
big
title of the
clue.
movie,
Wow.
I wouldn't need the clue. Uncle.
I don't know.
Uncle.
Drew Barrymore.
Uncle Drew? I don't know.
Uncle Drew was the name of the movie.
Whoa.
Wow.
He has blown this one wide open. It's 4-2. You guys
Thank
need
you,
these last two
Parker.
You're
questions.
welcome.
Nate, did you know that one?
Nate was dying
Fun
over
fact
here.
about that movie, it starred a former Celtics player, Kyrie Irving, as
Right.
Uncle Drew.
There it is. All right, 4-2. Question 7 over to Team Dear Frankie. Elizabeth Moss pops up in a road trip movie that starred Kristen Stewart and based on a Jack Kerouac novel. Name the movie.
Yeah, I really love my lifeline right now.
Is there a movie called On the Road or something like that? You know what I'm
it
talking about?
might be called
Yeah.
On the Road. I'm going with
Okay.
On the Road.
I don't know.
Wow, they're right
That's
in it here.
Claudia coming in
That's the
clutch.
only Kerouac
Four-
book that I could name, so.
Yeah.
4-3. Last question of the game. Matt and Phil can win it on a walk-off here or give them a chance to tie the game.
Oof.
Guys, Melissa McCarthy pops up in this Jennifer Lopez masterpiece.
Wow, those are some words.
It came out in 2010 and is about a woman who gets artificial insemination only to meet the man of her dreams on the very same day. Name that Jennifer Lopez masterpiece.
I don't think it's made in Manhattan. That's as far as I've
So
got, Matt.
Jennifer Lopez masterpiece, right? There's only a couple. The Cell.
I'm using it somewhat lightly here.
Well, hey, I don't think there's any other
For
way to use
fodder.
it. The Cell, right? And Wedding Planner. I think it would probably, that was her and Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, no, I was thinking of Wedding Singer. Okay, that explains a lot.
Where
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
a wedding
yeah,
planner, and I forget how they fall in love, but they fall in love. I can't even think of another Jennifer Lopez movie right off the top. You?
No.
Let's go with Wedding Planner.
That has nothing to
That
do
is
with artificial
incorrect.
insemination, Matt.
Well,
Team
she
Dear
was a
Frankie has
loner.
a chance for a steal and to tie the game. Melissa McCarthy pops up in this Jennifer Lopez masterpiece. Came out in 2010. A woman gets artificial insemination and only that day only to meet the man of her dreams.
I'm looking at the resident J-Lo superfan over here.
Of course I can't. Okay, so quick. Okay, so there's like Monster in Law. There's Made in Manhattan. There's The Wedding Planner. She's in that Jersey Girl movie, but then she dies.
Boy, you do know your J-Law.
Yeah.
Oh, J-Lo, sorry.
Saw her in concert. It was epic. Shoot, but I can't think of a artificial insemination of it. Any ideas, guys? No? All right. There is one that I'm definitely missing that she did in that time. I'm just gonna guess. It's gonna be wrong, but I'm panicking. I give up. I don't know.
Megan Marie is really struggling.
Wow.
I'm like, no, let her guess. Just throw one out.
It's gonna be wrong.
That's okay if it's
none
wrong.
of the films that I said are.
We
are
guessed
correct.
Wedding
It's none of those.
It's none
Okay.
of those.
No,
Yeah.
you missed one. I'm looking at the list, and
It's
somehow
just
you just
one.
missed this one.
It's the
You
one.
named every single one, but you missed the backup plan.
Oh my.
The backup plan.
I think half of America
Oh
missed
my
the backup plan. It's definitely not one of her more successful
No,
films.
it's
Matt
not.
and Phil win this one 4-3.
Dang, guys.
Handshake.
Yeah, handshakes.
Look at this. Matt's up literally out of his chair. Wow. Handshake. Good stuff. All right.
I'd like to thank my partner, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great team effort.
If it came down to a jawbreaker, this question would have been over to Nate. Kristen Stewart, good actress or not?
Good actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
actually correct.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Anybody in Twilight outside of that movie is good.
if we're gonna talk Kristen Stewart, her recent, maybe it was like either a year and a half ago, of when she hosted SNL. That whole episode was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was a joke one. The real jawbreaker was this: the age of Jennifer Lopez. And now that we have
50.
It's, all right, they would have got that one right. Why even
Wow,
throw
is
it out
she
there?
the big 5-0?
She turned 50 last Wednesday.
Yes.
And you were at the concert to sing happy birthday.
I did go to her concert. She literally threw a birthday concert tour for herself, which
Why
is the most
wouldn't you?
epic thing.
When I wrote that down as the job, I had wrote that down as the jawbreaker, having no clue that we were about to meet
Sorry.
J-Lo's biggest fan?
All
J-Lo fans?
all I'm thinking is that right now, if you knew that, the backup plan must have really sucked.
Yeah. Clearly wiped that from my memory.
Good times. It does bring us to the end of a great jaw.
Aw.
And first and foremost, we want to thank our 3 guests for coming on. This has been a blast.
Thank you guys so much
Thank you so much for having us. We're really appreciative of it.
Matt, we also got to thank our engineer, the man usually behind the glass, but sitting in the studio right now, Fill Me in Phil.
Oh, thank you guys. As always, it's the best night of my week. I look forward to it, and a good game, Matt. We make
Thanks,
a good
Phil.
team. You'd think we would work together.
This couldn't have been possible if we did not have Pitchman Parker filling in inside the fish tank, giving out clues. Thanks, Parker.
Thank you.
He's a great kid, isn't he?
He's the best.
Puts up with my BO. Good guy.
Matt, we also
my
gotta,
BS.
We got to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get cool sponsors like them.
If you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is leave us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast.
Yes, we will read it on the show. And while you're there, please click subscribe. One extra button helps us out a ton.
Until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt Kay, and keep on jawing about the movies.
This is a warning. You have entered the Cinemajaw Spoiler Lounge. Plot details, character deaths, twist endings, and everything in between will be discussed. Only continue forward if you have seen the movie in discussion, or do not care if something is spoiled for you. Again, this is a warning.
This is Spoiler Lounge. You heard the announcement. We are spoiling Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Last chance. If you have not seen the movie, turn the podcast off. Here we go, Matt.
All right. I am so ready for this.
Yes, I finally saw it. So let me give you my quick take on the movie, since I didn't have the chance to do that on the podcast that you reviewed said film. Excellent feature here by Quentin Tarantino. On your criticism of sort of too much of the background noise and news clippings, I could see where you're coming from, and also maybe a little bit too much of the just driving in the film, because they were showing off the sets though. So I somewhat understand that he's got this amazing backdrop of old Hollywood and he wants to use it and show it off.
But how many times do they come back to that same joke of him pulling into his driveway with the poster of himself?
Too much, right? I agree.
3 or 4 times.
Too many times.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is the ranch scene where Brad Pitt picks up that hippie girl and drives her out to this old film set ranch where
Pussycat.
Yeah, Pussycat, where all the basically Manson gang was living and hanging out, which turns out to be true. I looked up, fact versus fiction.
Did you go down the Manson rabbit hole?
Yeah, so that part of it was all very true. They were living at that ranch. And wow, what a sequence there that Tarantino put together, because it's always kind of funny, the movie, from start to finish, these characters are. But it actually is creepy and quite tense of a scene as well.
There's a lot of dread in that scene.
Oh, you don't know what exactly is going to happen. I thought for sure that the guy didn't exist that he was going to see, who ends up being Bruce Dern. I just assumed they killed him or he's not on the property anymore.
Same. I wasn't so familiar with the true story that I knew exactly what he was going to find in that room. And then when he walks in, everybody's thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a corpse and it's going to be smelly and a spider's going to crawl out of an empty eye socket or something. It's going to be gross. But then it was Bruce Dern, and it was kind of a relief.
The girl who is sort of the leader of that group in there, that's Dakota Fanning, who looked completely different to me.
Unrecognizable.
that threw me off. And it was one of those where it was just enough Dakota Fanning where I'm like, that's Dakota Fanning. And then like 20 seconds later, I'm like, oh, no, that's not her. So she looked like just enough. I was confused.
It was, great acting job.
Yes. So I loved that scene in particular. And then another favorite of mine was when DiCaprio has his big acting moment.
Oh, yes.
Where at the end of the scene, he ends up throwing this young actress on the floor, and they go with the scene, and they're yelling, like King Lear, and he's just going for it. And then after it ends, that moment of, he just feels like he's got it again. He nailed it. He just nailed it, and the director goes and talks to him. But that sequence shows you what a talented actor he is, because you had mentioned the same thing, that he is doing acting in the movie, right? So you have this moment right before he's about to turn it on inside that scene. And the layer there of changing it over to, okay, now I'm acting for the camera inside this movie was incredible. I love that sequence.
I did too. It was probably DiCaprio's character, Dalton's best moment in the entire movie. Because otherwise he was really played for laughs, and it was a little too corny for my taste. Like, definitely not my favorite character. Brad Pitt's character, on the other hand, Cliff Booth, every moment he's on the screen is just great.
And your favorite scene when we did this film was the Cliff Booth meeting Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
However, I would actually say that the joke that's used for the recap of that scene,
right?
I love that moment when he comes back. Oh my goodness, because he goes up on the roof to fix the antenna.
Right.
And then it just jumps to this scene of this whole thing of him going to be on set, fights Bruce Lee, throws him into the car.
It's a little confusing at first.
100% confusing, and that's what makes that moment so great. Then it comes back and he says, fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Because in that moment when he goes up on the roof,
that was the hardest I laughed in the movie.
You almost think in the scene leading up to that, where he drops off DiCaprio, and Leonardo DiCaprio's character is a little mean to him, and he's like, hey man, you're not on this shoot actually, can you go home and fix my antenna?
Right.
And you're thinking, oh, he's kind of a crappy friend. He's like, well, you can't be in this one because it's the same gaffer as the guy that did Black Hornet. And so then he goes home, he gets on the roof, and then that flashback occurs, and he's like, oh, actually, yeah, that's...
But we don't know it's a flashback.
Right.
And that's really the joke, that it is a flashback, and he's like, that's about right.
Yeah, that's about right.
Wow, is that good.
That was awesome.
The entire cast was great. I thought DiCaprio and Brad Pitt's chemistry was really off the charts. It was just perfect.
Perfect.
It really was.
I believed their relationship wholeheartedly.
I did. So let's bring it to the end of the film, which is something that obviously we don't want to spoil if you haven't seen the movie, but since you're here...
this is the spoiler lounge.
Right, we figure they have. And that is, what was he going to do with the Manson murders? And
right. And he Inglorious Bastards it.
He did.
He rewrites history.
Alters history. And in a lot of ways, a movie like this, being a film about movies, it totally makes sense, because that's what film is, right? We're watching movies where we can make up the ending.
Jeff York called it, by the way. Yeah, I think probably once he got to that point in the writing, he realized that that's the only thing he could do. You just can't murder Sharon Tate on the screen and get away with it. I don't think it would just be repugnant, but the way he did it is kind of what everybody wanted to happen, and then we get to have the continuance. But is this going to become a crutch for Tarantino? Now this is the second time
he's done it. I know, that's why my defense with York, when we were talking to him that time, I said, I don't know if he'd want to do that 2 times, because he's already done it with Inglourious Bastards, but it worked so well here. And that last shot, what you see is that overhead shot of DiCaprio being invited into Sharon Tate's home, and they walk in, was actually very somber, because we, the viewer, know that this was a very, this was Hollywood. This is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He made up an ending.
We also know what really happened that night.
What really happened.
Yeah.
But the violence of the scene where they actually kill the 3 intruders was so over the top and funny. But I did see some complaints of people saying, well, it's no laughing matter. But I don't think they got the point that that's what we wanted to have happen, like you said, and we were like relishing in the moment of this over-the-top violence towards the bad guys in this case.
Right. I don't get that criticism at all, because that criticism was not levied against him for Inglourious Bastards when the bastards machine gun Adolf Hitler in the face. Everybody's on board for that, so, I mean, why not the Manson family? They're not quite as repugnant as Hitler, arguably, but certainly very, very disgusting people that we would all sort of enjoy seeing get their comeuppance. I'm not advocating violence per se, but I thought that was cathartic. It was earned, and it was okay by me. I don't get that backlash at all.
And I also love the flamethrower coming back out at the end. What a great touch. That was, right up there with as much as I laughed with the antenna when DiCaprio's reaction to the girl falling into the pool and then coming out with the flamethrower was just amazing.
Right, yeah. I honestly thought that DiCaprio was probably going to get iced during that scene.
So did I.
Like, I was like, oh, well, he's dead.
Yep.
And no, he is not. He goes and he gets a flamethrower. I mean, wow.
Oh, just that scene was great.
And the fact that, okay, he really, Brad Pitt really channels Lloyd from True Romance in this scene. Right before all the violence takes place, he makes the decision to smoke a cigarette that's been laced with some drugs that he had left at DiCaprio's house for over a year or so, months and months. And he's like, the train has left the station. And we get the idea, the impression throughout the movie that this character is such a super badass, he could take on Bruce Lee with one arm tied behind his back. But here he is completely out of his mind on LSD, and he still carries off this violence. And when he gets the trained dog to attack, it's pretty vicious, man.
It really is.
And the head bashing against the
telephone
and the mantle when he,
the mantle, yep.
Yeah, it is full-on gore.
Good stuff. Phil, you also have now seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I have.
You enjoying this conversation? You
Absolutely.
A lot of things that you liked with this one?
Absolutely. I think, I'll be honest, I'm not as high on it as you guys. I do think that the pacing is a big low point. Like, they spent a little bit too much time with Sharon Tate watching her own movies. But I do think that there's a lot of little writing notes that Quentin does that really pull it together. Like, my favorite part of the movie is part of the roof scene, but when Brad Pitt gets onto the roof, it's just like such an obvious thing since he's a stunt guy. Of course he's not going to use a ladder. He like jumps on a trash can, then climbs up on the fence, and then like
it's a great touch.
It's awesome.
That was great.
And then like even when Leonardo DiCaprio is like recounting the story to the neighbors, he was like kind of surprised himself that this prop flamethrower still works.
Yeah, they're like, well, are you okay? He's like, well, not the hippies. One of them's burned to a crisp.
The way he tells it so matter-of-factly.
Yeah. I do want to ask you guys a question, and this is, I guess, a little bit of a spoiler, because I'm not sure on it, do you guys think that Cliff actually did murder his wife? Because they don't answer that.
Oh, right.
That's a great question.
Yeah, they do leave it very open-ended, and it's funny because I went and read this fact versus fiction, and they bring up that character. Is it real or is it based on something? And they bring up the idea of, he never explains one way or the other if he killed his wife. Does that make the character any more empathetic, or would you still cheer for the guy?
Right.
It complicates the character for sure.
It does complicate the character, which I think is good.
If it was my guess, I think he murdered his wife.
See, I was in the camp that he didn't, because he seemed like such a good friend to Leonardo DiCaprio and how much he loved his dog. I would imagine.
Well, I agree with that, but they paint the wife in the very brief scene that she's actually on screen as such a horrible person. You know, she's there, she's on a boat, she's with her loved ones. Everything should be great, but all she can do is complain, and she's really, really abusive. So I kind of do think he was pointing that direction. I mean, he's got the spear gun pointed right at her. He's on a boat in the middle of nowhere. She's dead. We know that. And everyone thinks he did it.
Well, and because he has that line in the car when he's got the girl with him where he's like, the police have been on me and I'm not going to jail for this one, or whatever the line is, something like that.
Right. Yeah. I can't say the line, but because Parker's still hearing this. but he's like, I ain't gone to, basically the gist is I ain't gone to jail for a girl yet, and I'm not going to start because of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Another nice touch by DiCaprio, the scene that you didn't care for so much, and I think it does go on a little bit too much, is when Sharon Tate is in the theater watching her performance. But the nice touch about that is he left it as Sharon Tate in the movie.
Yes.
I agree.
That's nice. But let her performance sort of shine here.
But what's interesting is we're watching a movie star playing a movie star who's watching herself starring in a movie.
Right.
So I'm just going to leave that right where that is.
It's really interesting.
It is. I mean, the layers he put into it, crazy.
Did you guys think? Did you guys notice there were like moments where I think he was letting you know that Charles Manson was stalking her too? Throughout that, like, there's a big scene. Like, the big one that comes to my mind is like there's this really bright red car that pulls up behind her when she's at the ticketing agent.
That's his car from Pulp Fiction. That's the red car that John Travolta is driving Mia Wallace in. Yeah. Yes.
See, I just thought it was supposed to be Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
And I feel like there was like a lot of stuff like that where it was like, but you only see Manson once, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. He goes to the house.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're not there.
Which reminds me. So does anybody here have the answer to why the Wikipedia plot entry, at least as of the time that I saw the film a week ago, was completely off base? Did you read it? You probably didn't. So it actually says in Wikipedia, and it may have been corrected by now, that Sharon Tate is trained in martial arts by Bruce Lee, and she actually gets in the fight. The Manson family comes and captures her, but she escapes and beats the hell out of them with the martial arts that Bruce Lee taught her. Bruce Lee is actually there fighting.
It could be like an extended cut because there is like when she's watching herself and like replaying in her own memory.
She's doing the karate moves. Maybe he shot that. Maybe that was the original script, but there is a wild, incorrect plot synopsis on Wikipedia.
That could have been to keep everything under wraps.
Maybe.
By the studio supplied that or something, just to keep it quiet.
Could be. It's completely accurate up to the ending, and it still says that they reversed history. So I don't get why it would be different, but maybe.
Weird. All right. Any other thoughts? I think this has been a really good spoiler launch.
No, we spoiled it.
Yes. All right. So that's it. For real this time.
Until we spoil the next film.
Right. But for this podcast, now we've got to bring it to a real end.
Indeed.
Right. So until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt Kay. And keep on jawing about the movies.